welcome back to my channel. So today's video is my 2020 bullet journal flip through because now that 2020 is officially done and I have finally migrated into my 2021 bullet journal full time. I had to wait until the end of this past week just because the first 3 days of January are actually in my 2020 bullet journal, just the way it went. But now everything is officially done and migrated over and it's time to do a flip through. So I like doing this video at the end of every bullet journal as a way to kind of officially wrap it up in my mind, have a bit of a reflection, like look back through the pages and see what actually happened, because a lot of times when I'm just in the process of migrating spreads into a new bullet journal or deciding if I want to migrate it or not, it's not really a reflection, it's I'm making decisions about what is still relevant or not. But this video is kind of the way that I reflect back on the year and sort of officially close it out more, I guess, emotionally, if you will. And also I think it's a good way to show you all, since obviously when I have to film my Plan With Me's a little bit ahead of time and whatever, there are certain spreads that don't necessarily get finished in time for the video. So this is a way to show you everything as it is completely done. Basically, as soon as I finish this video, I'm going to slap on some archive stickers and put it up on my shelf, which actually, this is officially bullet journal number 9. So, now that I do a bullet journal a year, I have far fewer. When I was first starting out, I think I did about 4 months in a journal, and so a year would be 3 journals. And while that was really fun, I really like having a year in a journal. Honestly, it suits my organized mind. Also, I have fewer journals on my bookshelf because, as you can see, this is just my bullet journals and my PROJOs since 2016. Obviously the bullet journal method is not a bullet journal and this is a washi thing, but like all of this is just the past like 5 years or whatever of bullet journals, and I'm gonna run out of space. So having 1 year in one notebook actually works out really well. So without further ado, let's head on over to the table and take a look at how 2020 went. Here is my 2020 bullet journal. So I have left it in here just until I finish filming this video because this is the notebook cover. I mean, obviously I was using the prototype for a lot of the year, but this is the notebook cover I've been using all year, and so it felt like it would be nice to have it still in the notebook cover while I did this flip through, but I will be using this notebook cover with my longhand journal as soon as I finish filming this video. So let's take a look. I still love this vellum. Every time I open my bullet journal, it's just like a little touch of fancy. So top 5 goals. I'm gonna try and not go too in depth of things that I went into, for example, with the mega goal planning and all of that, but as you can see, top 5 goals were not a major success this year, which, you know, it is what it is. So I have finished my index and I am really glad that I did these columns like this. So I write fairly small and I don't really, because I still use the, because last year I was using my PROJO with the end book, a lot of my random little collections that would normally go in here actually go in there, and so it really cleans things up in here. So even though I was in here for an entire year, I only used 2 and a bit of the columns for my index, and yeah, I really actually liked this setup. Honestly, in terms of the setup of this notebook, there are very few things that I would change. One of the things that I would change is I messed up when I was doing my printing and I did my signatures too small, so I have like 12 of them, and it just made it a little bit unwieldy when I was putting everything together. So I would definitely do that a little bit differently. I definitely need to work on my binding just because of how much use my bullet journal gets throughout the year. I did have to glue my the spine to the cover, I think only once, but I did actually have to reglue it. But otherwise, everything that I kind of set up and the way that I set it up worked out super well. So that is fantastic. So future log, honestly, I do not use my future log for very much. Anything that has a specific date typically ends up on my Google Calendar just because that is the way that it's easier for me to shuffle things around. But I do keep birthdays, holidays, and paydays on here. And every once in a while I'll put something else in, but for the most part it's just this, and that's why I keep it super simple. I don't let it take up a ton of space. It's nothing fancy, but it's just kind of a record for when I'm setting up my next monthlies. Quarterly goals, yeah, I didn't finish any of these completely. There are ones that are, for example, I'm looking font, 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 font. It's on all 4, only actually crossed it off on 1 because that was kind of the last time I worked on it potentially. No, I think I did some here. or no, here. Anyway, not very much. Naturalization dossiers on 2 of them. Like, I did some stuff, but not as much as I had hoped. Same with the top 5 goals. Yeah, this is a pretty good representation of how much I actually got done. I will say that since, when did I do it? So I think in December, I actually did buy plane tickets to go to Italy. I think I've mentioned that in a video. I have no idea if I'll actually be able to go with the situation. Like, you know, if cases spike or whatever, I might have to change the dates, but I figured I'll book them and see what happens. I did make sure that I can change the dates if I have to. Like, it's, you know, I'm not gonna like lose them if I can't go, but I am prepared. I'm hoping I can go, but I'm very prepared to, again, not be able to go, but we'll see. So this is my income tracker, and this is actually one that did not make it into my 2021 bullet journal. I started this back when I first started bullet journaling, and it was very useful for a long time. However, I have finally figured out budgeting. I'm, you know, still have a lot to learn, but like I'm definitely getting better every year and every month, and I'm, you know, figuring things out. And it turns out that I need to budget digitally. And so this spread was kind of a good tracker, but I don't really need it anymore. And as you can see, I didn't even fill out the end of the year. Like I just kind of didn't. So that one we are leaving in here. Then I have my YouTube editorial calendar. So this is the videos I actually posted, and it's always really fun to go back and see what all I actually did post and see, you know, I do mark if there are weeks that I actually post twice a week. I took a hiatus in July. My internet went out in September, so I can actually see this kind of at a glance. And I do also kind of keep track. So after I have uploaded videos to YouTube, I do export and save the file on a hard drive so that I have it. And what's great is I file them by year, and so I can actually see how many videos I average a year. So most years, since I've started posting regularly, which I think is the past, so not 2020, so 2019 and 2018, I've averaged like 60 videos. And I think this year I only had like 55 or so, just because of some technological problems that were out of my control. But it is always nice to look back and see all of the different videos I've posted. Then I have YouTube workflow. Again, probably one of my favorite and most used spreads. Yeah, it's so simple, but it's so effective. Have my YouTube tracker, and actually 2020 I officially broke 30,000 subscribers, which was really, really cool. So thank you all for that, for everyone who is subscribed and who watches. So that's always kind of a fun like look back at the milestones. And then January. So as basically always, I do some sort of grayscale for January because it's my favorite color combination, but it also suits the like mood of January, and yeah, it just always works out this way. So, oh, I loved this one. I actually did, I think I did my gray, one of my gray gel pens in this month for all of my dailies and all of my intentions and stuff, which was really nice. I do love a good gray gel pen. And honestly, my intentions don't change. I think this is the only one that's actually changed. This one is not there anymore, but for like 6 months, I think both of these were on here. So yeah, my intentions are not super variable, I guess, but it's kind of the point. They're things I like to work towards. So in terms of tracking and all of that, this was back when I actually did the legend, and you know, I'm very glad. So, I mean, I've only been using my new tracker for a couple of days, but I'm very glad to have it like simplified, because this didn't take very long, because, you know, it's like 3 dots to do in the morning, 3 dots to do in the evening, and then like every other week to do like whether I clean or not. Like, it's not super complicated, but it does take time. And so I'm glad to have something a little bit more simplified. I love looking back at my reading trackers, and I think I'm actually going to do a separate video to talk about my reading challenge for 2020, just because I read a lot. Like, I should do a video about it. Why not? So yeah, 8 books in January, and my review, which gray gel pen, we love. So this was, I think at some point in 2019, that was when I stopped doing weeklies. And so this is just straight into dailies. And you can definitely tell where I have, like, I'm migrating into a new bullet journal, and all of the things I haven't done have to come on over here. Like, yeah, that's just the way it goes. Very simple. I definitely don't like do anything super fussy in terms of dailies. And actually, I really loved the B6 size. Like, it was a really good size for me in terms of needing to fit like all the things I needed to actually fit. So I am curious to see how going back to 8.5 after a year in a B6 is gonna work out. Then February, which was this like fun blue lavender lilac situation. I really enjoyed that one. It was a little bit hard to capture in photos, and it definitely was much paler than all of my writing, so it's kind of funny to look back on because all of a sudden it's just like all the headers are washed out, but you know, it's fine. So yeah, once again with the same intentions. I did have my holidays, so I was working on some stuff there. With the tracker and reading, this month I only read 3 books. Definitely goes in waves. I think I finished out the year with 83 books, and like, it really depends month to month. The previous month was 8 books, this was 3 books. Like, I read a little bit most every day, but I'm not necessarily the most prolific reader every single month. It definitely does depend what's going on, so it's kind of nice to go back and see. Like, I know February must have been a really like busy time because I didn't do that much reading, or actually what I'm curious to see. So actually I must have been doing a lot. I was doing a lot of sewing and I wasn't even watching a ton of TV most of the time. So I think I must have been watching a lot of YouTube, or I was just working on projects and stuff. Like, I'm not even sure exactly what I was doing, but it was just one of those months that I didn't do a lot of reading. So, oh yeah, I was on my holidays. So I do like to do some kind of a holiday tracker a lot of times. I didn't really do one for my last Christmas holidays, but I usually will have something where I'm like, you know, these are the things I want to actually get done, and it kind of helps me stay on track. So playing around with some writing on my headers, but again, I'm very, like, I'm not super inventive in terms of the way I write my headers. Like, I don't really care that much. I like certain styles and I just kind of stick with them. So then I had my like chartreuse olive month, which low-key loved this one actually. I was really happy with all of my color schemes this year, I think, actually. Every once in a while I'll do one I'm like, I don't really like that one as much, but I think this year they were all pretty good. Once again, literally the same intentions. I really don't change that much. And this one, so I was really smart, and when we officially went on lockdown, I wrote it here so that obviously this year I 100% knew when that happened, but in like 5 years, if I look back at this bullet journal, am I gonna remember the date? Probably not. So I did try and actually write down some of that kind of stuff this year, just as like a way to have that memory later after it's been a while. So yeah, we'll see. Oh my gosh, yeah, this was actually, I went back to work, promptly was just so sick, actually had to go on sick leave for a couple of days, which is why those days are like that. And then I went back to school for like a week, and then we were on lockdown. Like, it was a very strange time. So yeah, so that was my like marking the first bit of quarantine, because like technically I think it was on like the 15th or something like that, but like for work purposes it was from here. And then I did also, like, I was like, you know, what am I gonna do if I have a ton of free time? I can't go anywhere, I can't go for walks, like what am I gonna do to keep myself occupied? And so I did a little tracker, or like I did a little collection sort of with ideas of projects and stuff I could work on. And as you can see, I got through a fair amount of them, although at this point I was still lying to myself that I was going to do any knitting whatsoever, which clearly did not at all. I think I did a square, because this lap blanket was going to be like different knitted squares with different stitches, and I did one of them and then was like, meh, I'm over it. So yeah, for a while I was doing how many weeks of lockdown we were on. At some point I definitely stopped. I mean, we did in France, we went out of lockdown for a while, so that might have been part of it, but also just stopped after a while. So yeah, oh yeah, this was one of my Korean headers. And then a lot of times if I have extra space, I just will do a little something there. Honestly, probably a third of the time I leave it blank, and 2/3 I just write in some random little thing. Then I had my April, this was my pastel watermelon. That's what I call this one. Oh yeah, I loved this one because it was an Oscar Wilde quote, and I was like, I just need something like tongue-in-cheek, a little bit irreverent and snarky, just, I need something kind of like that to like keep my mood up. So that is why we went with Mr. Wilde. And I did my super pale gray pen, which is like probably impossible to see on camera. It is legible in person, but not like at a glance. You have to kind of look. Yeah, that's, you know, it was a fun pen to write with, but it was a very different look. And especially with how dark my dots are, the dots really stand out. But yeah, just kind of trucking along. Count how many times I actually do just breathe in here. It's probably at least 4. I think we're at 2 now. Should try and pay attention, see how many at the end. Then May, I think I had a lot of like very similar colors for a while where I was doing a lot of like the pink and green situation, a lot of like a mustard. I've been obsessed with mustard this year. Like it's just been a thing. It really has. So once again, same. And it's honestly sad. I should have realized months and months ago that I should just take font off my intentions because I just wasn't working on it. I do still want to at some point, but it's just, I have so many other things I want to work on and they always end up taking precedence. So this one, I think I've had at least 2 months in a row where I hit my 4 books and like that was it. I usually have at least 1 or 2 that I start and like don't actually finish. Whoops. Because some of them either they're long or I run out of the loan time at the library or whatever. So this one, oh yeah, this is when, at some point back in April, I think. Was it? Yeah, I think around like April, March-ish. April, we'll say April. So back in April is when I started doing, each week I rotated through a different language for my headers. So I had Italian, Spanish, then German, because remember how for 2 hot seconds I was studying German? I do eventually want to study more German, but right now I'm just really focusing on Italian and Korean. This was definitely a quarantine hobby. Then English and Italian again. For reasons I didn't do I didn't do Korean. I don't know why. Honestly, I just kind of do it on a whim, so sometimes I do one and not another language, and I'll get back to it the next month. So this was, I needed to update my quarantine checklist, and so I did a new spread over here to kind of like, you know, after I've used one for a while, even if I'm not planning to finish everything, I'll eventually just move to a new one just to kind of keep it from getting too cluttered because it makes my mind cluttered. So then I had June. This one I did really enjoy too. Like these were so like 90s vibes, like 80s, 90s vibes. I loved this one. At some point I started, well, so kind of for a while I had been doing where the monthly log in my PROJO would be for any projects I work on, and then my monthly log in my bullet journal would be for like how am I feeling or if I did social things or whatever. And at some point they just started like mushing together. And so usually this monthly log has everything, and then the one in my PROJO would have like project kind of stuff. And I think it was around this time that I was starting to kind of think like, it might be time to like remeld those into one and stop having 2 separate logs because it doesn't seem like it's working as well as it used to. Then yeah, definitely prior to the end of the school year, I did not read a lot. Probably the stress of lockdown, but I don't know. So also this one I was just like gave up and didn't really do a review. Not so good. Oh yeah, this was June. June and July were kind of rough months. I actually did pretty well for a long time in lockdown. I'm very, very introverted and very independent. And so spending a lot of time by myself for like days and weeks and months on end was actually not terrible until about June or July. And then that was when it kind of like didn't work so well. So yeah. Oh man, this was definitely a carryover, had a lot of open things going. Sometimes I'll do this where I could technically start my next week up here, but because I like to have like the full line, I'll just put a placeholder here and then skip a couple lines and start there. So that definitely comes up a couple of times. And we had our end of school finally. The end of the school year last year was so like, oh my gosh, it was so all over the place. Like we basically went back in person and then like 2 weeks later it was like, okay, bye, and like we're done. It was very abrupt. Then July, if you remember the July plan with me, I did not do so hot this month. I basically gave up on pretending like I was going to do any kind of lettering, and I actually had to stop filming go sit on my couch for a while, have a little breakdown, and then come back and finish. Yeah, so it was definitely much more like low-key in terms of the setup, but you know, that's the way it goes sometimes, right? So, and I also did a bit of a hiatus. That helped so much, doing a hiatus from YouTube for those 2 weeks, and I came back at the end of the month and I was like, so many ideas and so pumped to be back. Like, it was definitely a good choice. Reading definitely started picking up again as well, which was really nice. And, you know, dailies, just lots and lots of dailies. So this was the first month. July was the first month when I started using the anti-racism checklist that Planning with Kay made. And the first month that I did it, I did print out all of the extra pages. So it's actually like 4 pages long. And so I printed out super small because obviously B6 notebook, it's designed for an A5. I couldn't fit it full size in my notebook. So I did just like size it down. And so I did print out the resources, the first page, and then all the like months after that, I just printed out this, but I would refer back to this page. So, because I didn't want to waste the paper and print it out every single month because I had it once. So then I had, this is actually just the name of a K-drama that I was watching that I just decided to write down here in the corner. Like, I don't even remember why. I mean, I loved it, but like normally I don't write the names of K-dramas. Like, it's normally some sort of like positive thing or like, you know, it's usually an expression, not really a title, if that makes sense. So there, and then how did this, why do I feel, oh right, because I did it in the middle of the month. That's why I was like, wait, why does it feel like July is so short? It's because I basically put this in the middle of the month, and then I ended up having, this was like, I had an extra page, and so I did August over here, and then went into August, like intro pages, that's why. So yeah, this one, oh, I found 2 quotes that I really liked, and so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do both of them. I was in a much better mind space, and so I decided to just do 2 quotes. Also, if you notice that I have like 2 months that have very similar colors, but just like one's more bright and one's more pastel, I know, I don't know what happened this year. It was definitely a thing. I don't know how easy it is to tell, but typically what I'll do is I'll pick one color and I'll go through and do like all my work days and all of my like appointments, things I know ahead of time, and then in a different color I'll write in just my notes about the day, and that kind of helps me visually distinguish them as I go through, which is kind of nice. So I finally did take font off, and I was doing, I wanted to start prepping for the next school year because it was August, so I put that actually as an intention for work, and then still had exercise, languages, and sewing. Did a ton of sewing in August, like so much sewing. 5 books, not too bad. Definitely some months I don't do as much on the review. It really just kind of depends. And then this was my next YouTube workflow, and this is actually just through the end of the year. So I had a couple of spaces left, and I've since moved into the one that is in my new bullet journal, so yeah. But it's nice to know that roughly 2 full spreads of these gets me through about a year, which is great. Then I had more dailies. This one is just full of whiteout because I had a exercise workout, or no, I had an exercise collection, that's what it is. And for whatever reason, my brain was like, oh yeah, no, I just need a page. And I started drawing it and I was like, wait a minute, I actually want a full spread. So I just whited it out, used it for dailies, and then was like, okay, cool, starting fresh, which, you know, that's the way that's what a bullet journal is for, right? So once again, with the dailies, just lots and lots of dailies. Oh yeah, already the end of summer somehow, ugh. And then September, I feel like I frequently use purple or yellow for back to school. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. So this was when I did kind of revamp my intentions a little bit more. I had no work weekends, which that has been one of the best decisions that I've made like this entire school year, was doing no work weekends. Working on YouTube backlog, I think this has been on here for a while. I eventually dropped exercise, and create is what I did. Instead of sewing, I just kind of made it a little bit more broad and just did create. So that way I could get other things under that umbrella. Although usually what I do is sew, like, let's be honest. So I also stopped doing my legend over here, which actually worked out because when I did October, I wanted that space for decorations and stuff. So this is where I started having kind of a more set spread. So I would have my anti-racism tracker and then something else over here. So sometimes it's a brain dump. This month it was an exercise thing. Sometimes it's just my dailies that start, just kind of depends. So back with the dailies. And as you can see, like I rotate through the same languages. I use the same setup, like nothing ever really changes. And it's honestly really comforting to me to have, haha, here's where my internet died. Again, trying to be better about writing down things that in the moment I'm like, I'll definitely never forget that. And in 3 years, I'm gonna be like, wait, what happened? Like, gotta get better about that. But yes, I do better with a routine and like a pretty stable routine. And so even when I set up my bullet journal, I don't change the setup and like the aesthetic of it very often either, because it just makes my brain happy to have it look like familiar, I guess. I don't know. Then October. My one exception is October, as you all know. And I loved how this one came out. Like the purple with grays and black just looked so nice. And I just had some of the cutest little like washi decorations and everything. And oh yes, this, honestly, I was so happy to not have that legend so that I could do a full thing over here. Because obviously this, like I crammed a ton of information in this B6 and I did not have a lot of extra space. So also 10 books. For whatever reason, I guess I read more in the fall. That would be an interesting experiment, is to go back through and see how many, like, what my average is. Like, do I read more in the fall, or, you know, do I have a slump in spring, or do I read a lot in the summer? Kind of figuring out if I have sort of like seasons of reading, because I do, but I don't necessarily see the big picture and know if it's like static year to year or if it really depends on the year. Anyway, random things I think about. So anti-racism tracker, brain dump. So this is one where I didn't have an exercise thing, so I put a brain dump over here. And again, with the dailies, my one concession was I just did little bits of washi tape in the corners, and I do alternate the corners so that it doesn't get too bulky in one space, because I definitely have made that mistake before in previous bullet journals where I did a lot more washi tape and it starts like really chunking up in one section and then it's really thin in another and it's hard to write on. So we tried to avoid that. So still with, oh, this was a washi tape. I think a pen pal sent it to me, and I used it probably on every single page in October and I loved it so much. It's just like, just good little creepy vintagey vibes. Then November, where I went with like fall colors, just fall smacking you in the face. Not mad about it, but it's very fall. Also, I loved playing with the white space on this spread. And still with, and actually finally dropped the exercise and I put Talk to Me in Korean back on here, but then otherwise I don't think my intentions really change much through the end of the year. And oh my gosh, this was one I read so much in November. I read 16 books. So like literally all of these, and then I had to use the space over here to finish out because I went on an audiobook and a like rereading spree, and I just read so much in November. It was a little bit stressed. Continuing on, anti-racism tracker dailies, literally. Yeah, we don't change too much. Kind of keep on keeping on. This was a good one. I realized that on dailies, I was writing a bunch of sewing tasks, knowing that I wouldn't get to them all on that day. I'm like, it's time to just make a sewing collection. So I did do a different sewing collection, and actually when I was migrating into my new bullet journal, what I did is I made it a collection in my notes book, because I am keeping my notes book this year, so that it's easier for things that I know I'm not gonna finish in a month or even 2 months. It's better for me to keep it in my notes book because that's where I know all of those kinds of collections are, and I'll go and look at it. Like I'll go look for it over there. So this was nice to have kind of done. I have actually been making some pretty good progress on some projects that I've had sort of hanging around for a while. So I have a few I need to finish, but we're getting there. Then December was my weird little watercolor because why not kind of situation. Yeah, it makes me chuckle. It's not good, but it's cute. So December, as always, and literally the same intentions. Getting back in, I read 13 books in December. Once again, kind of ending the year pretty strong. And actually, while I was on holiday, I was at like 78 books or something. And I was like, okay, I really want to hit 80 books this year. Like, that would be great. And then I ended up hitting 83. I was like, okay, it's time to stop. I need to slow down for a minute. So yeah, lots and lots of reading. Then same kind of setup. This is one, I think I skipped the brain dump for 1 month and then I did it again. And that was kind of when I was like, ooh, maybe I'll try and do like a quarterly brain dump and see how that goes. So that will be something I test out this year. Then more dailies, literally. This was actually a rare occasion that I also did a TV show because I had this extra space and I had just finished And with an E and was like in withdrawal a little bit. So I did that. So I guess though K-drama is not the only TV series that actually made it in here, so that's kind of cool. And once again, with the dailies, I definitely had a few weeks where just like, I was busy, I was at work all the time, I didn't really have anything going on, and so I'd fit a week on a page, but most of the time it was closer to like a page and a half. Oh, here was my experiment with a weekly again, which I am trying this week as well, and I'm really interested to see how that actually works. This was definitely a sort of collection of all of the things that I wanted to get done during my holidays. So this was for the first week of my holidays, and I actually referred to this kind of through the end of using this bullet journal. So it was really nice to not have to rewrite all of these things every time I turn the page or every week or whatever. So that is basically, this is it. This is the end of my bullet journal, and let's take a look. So I finished on page 184, and as you can see, I do still have a fair number of pages left. I actually have 237 pages in this notebook. I basically, when I was designing the notebook, I counted roughly how many pages I used in 2019 per month and just multiplied it by 12, and then I looked at what pages I wanted to set up in my fronted bullet journal and just kind of decided on a number based on that. So it is much less than a loiter, or wait, it's actually about the same as a like term, isn't it? Because I think a like term is like 248 maybe, or 250 something. I don't know, it's around that. But I was like, you know, this gives me a little bit of wiggle room if I do some other collections, but I should be good to fit an entire year in here. And obviously I was correct, I do have some extra pages. And because this is an entire year and I really do prefer to start a new bullet journal in a new year, I won't be using these pages. Like, they'll just live in the back of this notebook and it's fine. So what I will do is I have a backlog of Leuchtturm archiving stickers, and actually let's move this. So I have a ton of Leuchtturm archiving stickers because obviously every time you buy a Leuchtturm you get basically enough to archive 3 notebooks, and for a long time all I was using was Leuchtturm, so I have so many of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to archive it the same way that I do my normal Leuchtturms and just stick it on my shelf like that. So let's head back over for a few final thoughts. So there you have it. That is my full bullet journal flip through for 2020. And honestly, it was interesting going back through the months, but in terms of my bullet journal, it actually just, aside from me remembering certain things that happened at the time, it actually looks like a normal year in one of my bullet journals because I am so, I'm so much a creature of habit that I basically have a compulsion to use my bullet journal, if you will. Like, I really don't skip days in my bullet journal. Even I was on sick leave for like 3 days and I still literally wrote a header and was like sick. I might have done it 2 or 3 days after the fact, but I did still do it because I knew like my brain needed that, like, this was a day, it happened, here's kind of like nothing big happened, but like a thing happened. Like, I just need that sort of reassurance, I guess. Like, I really am not one of those people that skips days in my bullet journal. So even when I was like, oh yeah, this was a tough month, or I think I was really stressed here, like, you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that because I missed days in my bullet journal or I didn't fill in my tracker or whatever. Like, I'm actually really, consistent, I guess is the way to put it. And so yeah, that was 2020. So I'm happy to close the book literally on that one, and I'm excited to see what 2021 brings. So if you have any comments or questions, let me know down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!